Welcome, everyone. I'm Henry DeVries. I'm joined by Devin DeVries, our Vice President at Indie Books International. And this is our monthly Q&A. It's our opportunity to build community, to have you meet each other and ask any question you want. I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes on some of our research. And then it's an open forum where you can ask me any question about marketing with a book and a speech, preparing a book, promoting a book, publishing a book. Devin is the authority on publishing and promoting. She heads up our publishing division and the promotion. And she came to us from private industry where she was a back-end rock star for some e-commerce companies and is very well versed in the promotion of a book in these digital days. So with that, I want to take us back to a scary time. This is a spooky month. This was a Friday the 13th. We've got one of those coming up, but this was Friday the 13th, 2020, March to be exact. And that's the day when in California, the governor told us that we were non-essential employees and we could not go to our office anymore. We were in lockdown. And while some people thought, well, this will be over in a few months, I wondered, what if it isn't? And took up a research project then with how were the most successful rainmakers at agencies and professional service firms, consulting firms, what were they doing to make it rain during the pandemic? And some definite patterns emerged in our research. I interviewed over 100 top rainmakers for the study. I was joined by some colleagues on it, and we published a book called Rainmaker Confidential. Scott Love and Mark LeBlanc helped me with this project. But let me go to the first thing that I found that they did not do. You know, when you get a LinkedIn invitation and then you accept it, and right away you get hit with this thing about this long thing, pitching their services and saying we need an exploratory call. Yeah, and you get this kind of uneasy feeling about, yeah, why'd I, okay, I'll polite and say no thanks or something like that. But it leaves a bad feeling. Yeah, top rainmakers don't do that. Top rainmakers don't beg for business. And if you're like me, you get hit all the time with people saying, oh, what are you doing with lead generation on LinkedIn? We can totally transform it. We'll guarantee to give you 8 to 10 leads a week. Don't do it. Everybody we talk to said, don't go that way. It's not for high-end services like all of us. Okay, what were they doing that worked? One is they did a podcast, but they did it different. They did it like a TV show. That's why we do our podcast as a TV show. We started this year because, boy, that sounds more interesting. And it's free to do this on YouTube and Spotify and iTunes. So it's really no cost. You need to produce it. Who do you get on as guests? Well, you get leaders in the industry that you're targeted. So we target advertising, marketing, PR agencies. So we have the leaders of advertising, marketing, and PR agencies on. We call it thought followship. That's from one of our authors, Colton Briner. He says, be a thought follower. Don't try to be a thought leader. When you shine a spotlight on other people, you get valuable content that you can turn into articles and blogs. More important, you get people being interested in who you are. And then they share their visits with their sphere. And, birds of a feather flock together. Like attracts like. So you get known in this wider sphere, and you're seen as an authority in your area. So that's what they were doing. As part of that, they were choosing a niche or a niche if you're up in Canada. Riches and niches. I think riches and niches sounds better. The second thing is they did research, and they sometimes partnered with somebody to do research. So our book was research. It was based on in-depth interviews, but there are other types of research like attitude studies. We found people who would do those, or who would collaborate with an association and do it with auspices with them and send that out. And people like to know the numbers. People like to know how they compare to others. And that research was attracting people. Many of them wrote a book, choose the time to write a book, but not a big, thick textbook, a book under 20,000 words that had 20 ahas in it. David C. Baker, who wrote The Business of Expertise and who I've interviewed on this, talks about the 20 aha type book that people were turning out, that when people read it, skimmed it, they go, oh, okay, this person has something to say, and they got on the radar screen that way. They held an annual event, and when we were in lockdown, they held it on Zoom. When the lockdown disappeared, the vaccines took hold, we kind of are living in the COVID world. I can't say we don't get COVID anymore. Devin and I have gotten COVID in this last year. I think everybody in our family finally has had it once, but it's not the severity of that first year when, we were losing a lot of people. But then when it opened up, having live events. We have an annual conference, our Indie Family and Friends Forum. We took it virtual. We went live this year. We'll be live again next year. There's real power in getting 50 to 100 people in a room. A fifth thing that I'll leave you with that they did is they gathered a round table. And we did this July 31st in Chicago and had a round table of many of our authors and experts. We cross-promoted it. We had 35 people come spend a day with us at a Sheraton near O'Hare. And most everybody got clients out of that. And there was a lot of cross-pollination and referrals, and it's just a good thing to do. A nuance that David C. Baker says is use some budget and hire a speaker other than, you and your whole group. Who's a speaker that would come and people go, oh, wow, I've always wanted to hear this person. I suggest you start with authors, authors that are of interest to your target group, because like all of us, if somebody offered us $1,000 or even sometimes just airfare and hotel to go to some city and speak, we're there. My sister runs I call it a wine club with a book problem. It's a book club. And she's in Northern California, and she was telling me about this author that they'd read, and they really liked this author. And that author lived about an hour and a half from where they were. And I said, well, why don't you invite her to come talk to the book club? She said, oh, why would a famous, important author drive an hour and a half to talk to, 12 professional women? I said, oh, you don't know how far we would drive to have 12 people tell us we loved your book. Oh, I loved your book. Well, what did you love about my book? Tell me more. How did you love my book? Yeah, you might be surprised on bringing an author in. At UC San Diego, when I was head of public programs, I brought in really big name people and paid them $2,500. I know that wasn't their real speaking fee. And we're doing some event, and we've had Ken Blanchard and Toli Alessandra speak at our events, but I'd done a favor for them in the past, and they were repaying a favor. But some of the other people, there was no favor involved, but it was, I thanked one author, and she says, no, thank you. You're shining a spotlight on my book, because the publicity with the visit, and there was other things associated with it. So, that's how we become authorities, that we need to spread the word. So those are some ideas. So now I'd like to open it up, and you can put questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand. Devin, you might need to monitor the chat for me for questions, but I'll look to see if anybody just wants to raise the old-fashioned hand and ask a question. And here's my tip to the Indie Books family. Here's how you ask a question. Who can I pick on? Some of you have books coming up. Hi, I see Joyce. Joyce, what's the name of your book? You've written several. Your last book.
Experience Rules, How Positive Experiences Will Drive Profit into the Future.
Okay. So here's how to get known in the Indie Books family. I have a question. Yes, Joyce. Well, I'm Joyce Joya. I'm the author of Experience Rules. Don't do the subtitle. Just give the main title. And my question is, and it doesn't matter. Right then, everybody goes, oh, she writes on experience. She's an expert on experience. You know, I knew somebody at a conference who was looking for a speaker on that. I'm sure Joyce wouldn't be interested in a speaking opportunity. No, of course she would be. So you could share it with her in chat. You could link in with each other. We don't do any promotion here, but I also will invite everybody to put your name, your book title, or your upcoming book title, even if it's a working title, in chat, and your email. We're all for people offline getting together on it. So with that, now I'll set it up. I see Juan's joined us. Hi, Juan. Anybody have a question? This is where you help the speaker out. Oh, Jamie.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello. Strategic Engagement Agency owner here. Love following along with your agency research. Tell me a bit about how much effort that took to put on that event in Chicago. How long were you guys planning that?
I don't know, Devin, do you want to take some of that?
Sure. Chicago event. I would say we probably 60 to 90 days out. We started talking about the agenda, who we wanted to invite, planning it. Probably 60 days out, we signed the contract with the meeting room. It wasn't that far in advance. I would say hotels have a lot more flexibility than they used to in terms of meeting rooms. That the meeting rooms have just, meetings have not come back as much. So they have a lot more availability, which is nice, which also means you can sometimes negotiate better deals for the rentals. And then maybe 30 to 45 days out, we started the kind of the marketing push for that. We website out, all the speakers had a link to share to their networks, all of that. I would say for live events, that kind of like six weeks notice is good to start inviting people, because then they have time to make their plans.
Jamie, at 3 weeks out, it was so successful, I had to go back to the hotel and
I remember
renegotiate the meeting room to get a larger meeting room. And they had it available, and they were generous on their terms. So we upped the room size. So yeah, that's so as Devin said, 60 to 90 days, you can pull one of these off.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do people do that? I mean, is that a once a year? Is that a once a quarter?
Well, we used to do them monthly.
Did you? Okay.
In the former times. So we would be going around the country. And our strategy now is maybe a couple of live events a year. Because I'm traveling so much more for the authors. And then I'm attending a couple of other people's events, like, we'll be together this month with a Agency Management Institute workshop in Denver on money matters. And I've attended this before, and it's good information, but I'm there to meet 30 to 50 agency owners who are going to be in the room. That's the reason I do that. So I look at that as, what we would have spent to put on an event, I'm spending to attend that event. Somebody else has gathered a target-rich audience for me. Steve, Dr. Steve.
Hi, Henry. I have
Hi.
a question for you. I'm Dr. Steve Swavely, the author of Ignite Your Leadership. And my question is, say more about the research project initiative that you mentioned. I'd love to hear what that might entail.
Okay. And poof, I want to anoint all of you researchers. If you're an author and an expert, you're a researcher. So we should always be gathering information on our topic from our target audience. When I used to do workshops, I would always have a short survey I'd have everybody fill out while they were waiting for the workshop to start and collect those and use that data. And then so for my writing, for Forbes.com and other places, I'm always interviewing people. I include that as part of my research. Those are depth interviews. I have conducted focus groups where I'll bring people into a room and we'll talk about it. I have a very funny focus group story or two, and the very valuable information from that. Then there are also these attitude surveys where you can do some research where you come up with, let's say, two dozen questions, and then you ask people, do they strongly agree with it or strongly disagree on a 1 to 6 point scale? And Susan Beyer out of Audience Audit does a lot of that research for agencies and is able to come up with usually 3 groups of people on any type of issue and tie some demographics to it. So there are all those tools. I certainly know you have a research background. There's also the good old secondary research of just getting your hands on everything that you can. For Jamie's book this month, we hired a researcher that I use who's in college, and for $100 produced some really valuable research, which we found out we should go in a different direction when Jamie complemented it with some other research. And that's probably the most valuable $100 we spent right there. We had that same researcher, and if anybody's interested, I'll introduce you offline, because somebody who's a good college researcher, for $100, they can produce a lot from an intense Google search that can be very useful to you, and a lot of numbers that are from other people and all that. But for another client who thought medium community banks was going to be their niche, and we researched that, and he read all the data and he said, yes, this qualifies as a niche. And his wife and business partner said, you were miserable when you worked there. He goes, I was. She said, you were happy when you worked in the travel industry. So we did another research study on the travel industry, and that's where we're going, that he lights up when he talks to these people. So sometimes it's the numbers tell you what not to do. Brenda, you have a question.
Yeah, Henry, thanks. I'm Brenda. I am a leadership and executive coach, and I help leaders get out of their own way. I am in the process of writing a book, Presence, How to Free the Mind Now for a Greater Impact. And my question, Henry, is I love the bring in the authors. Actually, I've been doing that over the last year and a half. And I just landed my 4th author, which is the Coaching Habit author, Michael Bungay Stanier.
Nice.
So my question is, how do I, and I'm already doing this, but how is there, I understand why I raise his status, I'm raising my own, but how do I then circle people like into my my work?
How do they turn into right fit prospects in your sales pipeline?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, one thing is you do something like we're doing right now. So we're never going to ask for the order right now. And,
Okay.
we're not going to call everybody and say, hey, really enjoyed you being on that call, Juan. When we're going to do that book together. No, because that's the chasing. You're like, I grew up on a horse ranch, and when you feed carrots to horses, you don't run after the horses shaking a carrot at them. You just stand there with the carrot in the palm of your hand, and they'll come up to you when they're ready. So your prospects will too. They're smart enough to figure out that. What we advise you to offer is a no-cost strategy call, perhaps
Okay.
a 30-minute no-cost strategy call. I'll give you 4 words to write down. That'll be the agenda for that call. Goal or goals, plural, assets, roadblocks, and others. So your agenda for the strategy call is, so what is your goal in this area? You're leadership. So it's, what is your leadership goal? Write down what they have to say. And then say, I find that people have assets, sometimes hidden, to get this done. What have you tried? What have you done? Oh, I've been to John Maxwell's course. I've worked with Marshall Goldsmith. Oh, great. Oh, that was awesome. Okay, well, we're probably talking right now because there's a roadblock. And someone like you, Brenda, knows how to get around, through, and over the roadblocks, but we're having this call because you think there's a roadblock. What do you think it is? And then be quiet and listen. They'll tell you. And a lot of times it has to do with time and money, lack of knowledge. But I even record those calls, so if I go back to them, I can use their words instead of mine. They believe their words more than mine. They believe their words more than yours. And the final thing is, well, would you like to know how I've helped other people get from where you are right now to where you want to go? Based on the limited amount of information I have, let me tell you about Penny Reed. The year was 2015. The place was Memphis, Tennessee. In under 2 minutes, the Penny Reed story. A story of someone like them. That's the hardest part, is to have stories in your mind that you can share that are short and meaningful to this person. But learning how to do all that was a game changer for me. One offering strategy calls is a generosity strategy. Our brand is Generosity, Family, and Fun. And it is also a very non-manipulative way of helping people. It's just so anti-sales that everybody else does. Many people would stop me and say, well, why are you being so generous? Why are you giving me all this information? Because I'm happy to give it on a phone call. Don't ask me to write a long proposal. I don't do that anymore. You don't get a long proposal without paying me. That's what I'm paid for. The specifics in writing. But I'm happy to tell you things about your strategies and things you could do and what you might want to consider and all that. And then people know if you're in their best interest or not. And we're not in everyone's best interest, but those who we are will know it and ask you questions like, well, Brenda, how much do you charge, and how long does it take, and what does your program look like? And then I tell people, oh, that's a meaningful conversation you want. We could schedule that, because I don't like to pollute the waters on the no selling zone strategy call. I might, so I won't frustrate people. I say, oh, well, to do a book can be anywhere from 7,500 to 36,000. Depends on bells and whistles and who does heavy lifting. But happy to have that conversation if you want it. Let me go to Jim. Jim, good to see you again.
Great
Jim,
to see you, and feel so fortunate to be here. That was everything you've said has been spot on. I was just wondering, you talked about what the top rainmakers don't. They don't beg for business, and use the carrot and horse analogy. Can you talk about some of the specifics, how you got butts and seats? And I'm guessing you used your LinkedIn strategy, which I've heard before, but maybe other members and myself could use a refresher.
Well, let's talk the July 31st event in Chicago. So we had 7 speakers, and each got about 20 minutes, except we were launching my book and Craig Lauder's book, Trusted Advisor Confidential, where we did a study on trusted advisors on what they do. These are people more in the financial services, like I see Mary on the call works with these people, and what they were doing to get business and what was working for them. So anyway, everybody got a free copy of the book. That was part of the promotion. Yes, we used LinkedIn. We also used everybody's email list, so we cross promoted. We made the event no cost. There's two schools of thought on that. We've done both ways, where we've done a little cost. We had a kerfuffle. We had a problem that the hotel restaurant closed that day. So all the speakers, we just reached into our pocket and had Uber Eats deliver food and kept people there for lunch. If I was going to have lunch served and included, I probably would have charged a nominal $25. We ate it. But it worked out better because we networked with people for the 90 minutes we had set aside for lunch, and didn't let them go off property. And who knows, when they go off property, they don't always come back. So they, they stuck it out through the day. I said we used our email list. We used LinkedIn.
And free book.
Free book as an added bonus. And then a lot of it was just, I actually got on the phone. I had a list of, so I picked off my 25 top prospects in the Chicago area on LinkedIn. And we call these sector ones. They don't really know me. They're just linked in with me. And, but they all list their phone numbers on the contact. So I reached out and called, and I got voicemail, of course, but hi, I'm Henry DeVries. I sent you a LinkedIn invite, and I sent you an email, and I just wanted to personally invite you to this, and left that message. I believe I see one of the people I called, and we actually, there you are. Hi, Shanita. And so we spoke. People are blown away when you call them these days. Like, this is not some robot reaching out. No, human being. Just, and we also follow up to keep attendance. We follow up with phone calls that leave our phone numbers and all that. If they want to text or call us, if they have some question come up. The personal approach works too.
Yeah, absolutely. A quick story. 2 weeks ago, a marketing person cold called me, and that alone got her the interview, and I ended up hiring her. Yeah, thank you, Henry. That's great. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Jim. Brenda, did you have another question? Oh, Devin has a hand up.
Yeah, we do have a question from the chat.
Oh, what is it?
So Daniel's interested in the forward of the book. Who do you go to, when in the timing and the process? Do you ask that? Or
Sure. Okay, so let's talk about a forward, FOREWORD. Sometimes I get people asking about an FORWARD. That's marching in that direction. Forward means before word. So it's a marketing technique. It's to find somebody famous to your target reader. Either their name and stature or their company's name is going to be impressive. So a lot of this is through personal networking, somebody and then you're going to ask. But we've had success with asking famous people and making it easy for them to do the forward. So we've gotten forwards from Ken Blanchard, Marshall Goldsmith, Daniel Pink, Guy Kawasaki. Now I'm losing it, but this guy in Kansas City, Hellsberg, the Hellsberg Jewelers, who was bought by Warren Buffett's
Bernard.
Thank you. And one of the ways we did it was we agreed to, as food for thought, draft the forward for them. I learned this from Guy Kawasaki. He said, you got to make it easy for people. They may want to do it, but they're too busy to do it. So I channeled Guy Kawasaki once and wrote a forward, and he made 2 tweaks and turned it around that day with a note. See how easy it is when you make it easy for others. For Marshall Goldsmith, I channeled Marshall Goldsmith and wrote this forward. And Marshall's people said, when did Marshall write this? Because obviously it's Marshall, but when did he write it? I don't. No, he didn't write it. We wanted to see if he would agree to it. I don't think there were any tweaks on that one. So that's the trick. When to approach. It depends on timing. If you're going to somebody who doesn't know you, they're going to want to see the draft of the book. If nothing else, to skim it, to see that they don't have a problem. We had Ken Blanchard agree once, but then there was something that was in the guy's book, and Ken's editor says, we just can't put Ken's name on this because we don't agree with this point. And we told the author, and he says, I don't really agree with that point either. And I said, well, we can't go back to Ken and say, we changed our mind. We now agree with you. So those things happen. So that can stretch out how long it takes to get a book published, because we need some time to go back and forth with a famous person. So you have to judge, is that worth it? And this is for the forward. That's more important than a testimonial on the back. Testimonials on the back are easier to get. They provide social proof when people flip the book over that, okay, yeah, this person is connected, and some people stood up for this book. But a forward, takes more that they need to be in a line with what you're doing.
All right. Thanks, Henry.
You're welcome. Steve, Dr. Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Henry. Another question for you. You mentioned the idea of doing a podcast as a TV show.
Yep.
And I love your podcast, by the way. I subscribe, listen to it all the time. But my question is more about what are best practices to become a guest on a podcast? One of the things I'm doing is in marketing my book is I'm working on doing that. I'm having some mediocre success with that, and I'd like to increase my podcast appearances.
Okay. Well, thank you for the kind words about our TV show. I appreciate it. Okay. And so we've laid that out. And now how do you get on others? There's a service called Podmatch, and for I think $23 a month, they'll suggest several ones you could go on. There are 2 million podcasts last I checked, and they're multiplying like rabbits. So it's probably more than that now. So there's a lot out there. And at one point, you're going to want to get strategic. But you're a leadership expert. So leadership podcasts and ones you can get on. So our suggestion is you do some research on some ones that appear to be a good fit for you. Sometimes you're just Googling, top podcasts, top leadership podcasts. But don't start at the very top. It's like the old days we used to say, if you want to be on TV, don't start by pitching Oprah. You're not Oprah ready. So on podcasts, look for more ones that you're connected with or have something in common, but listen to an episode at least. And then when you write your email to them, I really enjoyed episode 73. I like the question you asked him about this. That was very insightful. If you'd be open to a conversation about booking me as a guest, that would be most appreciated. I'm the author of blank. Okay, you just put yourself ahead of 90% of the other people who approach that podcast. And I know because of my Forbes column. 95% of the people have never read my column. They were pitching me to write about them. They don't know what I cover. They don't know my style. They don't know anything. 5% were mentioning things, specifics, not like those vague things I get on Facebook. Your work is very interesting. I see many similarities. It's like very vague. Give me a specific here that tells me right away. Okay. And do I know you're pandering to me? Sure, but keep it up. No one else is. So somebody at least listened to this and read it. Okay. Then I'm going to be receptive to the idea. And they need quality guests, and you're quality, Steve, and a lot of people here I know are quality authors and could add something to that. I will tell you that being on podcast is the gift that keeps giving, because people keep listening to them, and I continue to get clients as the result of somebody hearing me speak on a podcast. And the time from when they first talk to me to when they want to sign a contract is dramatically shorter if they've listened to me on a podcast. Matter of fact, some people want to hire me on the first call, and I go, "Oh, too soon." Let's just talk strategy today, and then if you want to have that conversation, it's another one. Well, can we have that next conversation tomorrow? Yes, we can have it tomorrow. So those are the general tips. Steve, if you don't have my monograph on how to get on a podcast, just ask me for that by email, and I will email it to you. Or Devin, as the follow-up to this call, you're going to do a follow-up email. Maybe you can attach that monograph to it, please.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And everybody can see that. Jorge. Hola, Jorge. ¿Cómo está?
Oh, very good. Keeping learning from you and try to be back into the writing and all these things. I appreciate doing this book for me that you did 11 years ago.
Think like Silicon Valley. Jorge it was in Silicon Valley, and he was helping companies from Mexico who wanted to partner with the tech companies in Silicon Valley. And Jorge, wow, what Mexico has done in the last decade as far as IT and advances there. And UC San Diego, we have a big project with the IT industry in Tijuana. But anyway, what's your question?
Well, in some way, I've never been into a publisher or things like that. And I am right now to become something, doing that as my way of life, try to reinvent after the pandemic. I did quieroaprender.com is I did during the pandemic 650 interviews, video interviews in Spanish with a lot of people in different subjects. And that was really like a hobby. I never tried to make it that as a business, but now I say why I don't change that mindset and doing that into something like that. And the way I am trying to do, and I would like to ask your point of view, is first of all, doing the video takes a little bit of much more effort and time than doing writing in a newsletter. Right. And I am writing now a newsletter that is called innotourist.com that is related to travel to innovation, very much into the same mindset of my book than say how the people learn about innovation coming to Silicon Valley. And I am doing interviews, so having every week 750 words post in order to create some audience. From there, I don't know what is the best way to go. Then move it into keeping just in the newsletter and try to sell my consulting services, or jump back into the video podcasts or things like that, or write once a book. There are so many choices, and I am just in the early stages because I really have a lot of things to be sharing with people. And the goal in some way is how I trigger people, professional people to convert their ideas into some additional income source for them.
So Jorge, if I understood the question is, how do you get clients from this, all this good work that you've been doing?
That's correct.
So the first thing that we always advise is some form of small scale seminar or Q&A community like this on Zoom. So we do this monthly. We used to do presentations. We found it works better if we do 10 minutes and then open it up and let people ask questions. So I know Jamie Shibley does that. People of Predictive ROI. We're leaders in this field, and so that's something we recommend. So people can hear, ask questions, interact, and then offering people no cost strategy calls if they want to go deeper about your services. Then the next thing is to get on podcasts and talk about your research. So you all of that, and you are a researcher by training and background. So all that research that you can analyze and share insights with people is very useful. The third thing to do, we're recommending a LinkedIn newsletter. This year I started my LinkedIn newsletter agency Rainmaker, and we're at about 2,000 subscribers now. And I've done nothing to say subscribe or any kind of campaign or anything. It's just organically has grown. Now I have over 10,000 LinkedIn connections, so they got noticed that I'm doing this, and that's how people came. Also, we're in an amplification group where we comment on each other's newsletters. Claire Price is in that, and Jamie is in that, and that helps spread the word on LinkedIn. And then the big thing is to write a book, publish a book on the findings. And that also kicks off the whole sequence where you can do small scale seminars on your new book. You can speak on podcasts about your book. You can recycle it into this newsletter and keep it going. And that's the authority marketing strategy that we recommend.
Okay, well, a lot of things to be done.
Yeah. So I wrote this week about the discipline to do it. So there's 1,001 ways to do this, but we prefer to be disciplined enough to do a LinkedIn newsletter a week, a tip a week, a show like this every month. I try to speak on 2 podcasts a month. And then lather, rinse, and repeat, as it says in the shampoo bottle. Just do that on a monthly basis, and you get momentum that way.
Thank you.
If you're sporadic on it, you're training your audience that you're sporadic and do things touch and go. Consistency, just that, they're always consistent. That's part of the brand message you want out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, when I did the Quiero Aprender, I was two interviews every day for the last year, and was crazy having two every day. And I was doing because I have the time. Now I am not having the time, and I am looking how to. If I invest in that, I want to see something back.
As Boston Consulting Group would say, you need to milk that cow. You fed that cow for a year. You need to start milking that cow.
That's correct.
From a guy who grew up on a dairy farm. Okay. I see our time is almost up. If we had a last question, I'd field it. If not, I'll give you the rest of your day back. Well, hearing none, thank you very much. And Devin will be sending out an email about this. And we do these every month and would love to have you, and hope it helps you also build your community.
Henry,
Juan has some question.
Oh, yes, Juan?
Yes. I really should direct them to the brains of your outfit, who's in center of my, you know who I'm referring to, your daughter, Devin. How are you, Devin? you said a lot of things that were interesting. I thought that reference, two things about being short in terms of the stories and vignettes, and then the fact that you'd spend only about 10 minutes and then open it up to question. That's a great approach because from my perspective, that's where you gain the most information. People ask questions that are relevant to yourself. So I applaud you for that. And I
Thank you.
applaud Devin too.
Yeah, well, and on behalf of Devin, thank you. Though Devin can speak for herself.
Well, I can represent her if you need me to negotiate.
In a labor negotiation?
Yes,
Yeah.
well, that's what I do. We did.
Well, unfortunately, she's part of management now, so.
Well, we'll have to start. Anyway, I'm just kidding, but good to see you both, all of you.
My wife, who's part of management, is she sides with the workers. She comes from Central California, so viva la huelga. Yeah.
By the way, many people make the mistake that thinking because you're in management that you're not subject to being unionized, but that's another whole story.
Okay.
Better go with that.
We'll look for the union label and your insights on that later.
No. I'm a management consultant. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, everybody, and hope to see you on another call. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Henry.